I'm trying to brace myself for the shock that I know is coming. So I literally feel the shock come into my brain like this. And
Like a
all of
wave.
this, like a wave. And then all of a sudden, I feel my brain go like this and it clenches. And I'm on the phone with her husband and I have no idea what to say. This is what I do for a living.
Yeah.
I have no idea. And all I can say to him is, I don't know what to say right now.
Kara, I'm glad to see you.
I am too.
And I'm curious, what's on your mind these days? Like, what are you excited about right now?
Yeah. Saying yes to a personal offering that I've been guided to bring to the world. And in the work that I'm doing, I kept saying I don't have enough time to do that thing because I got all this other stuff happening. And yesterday I saw that no, actually, it's time.
How's that feeling in your body right now?
Scary.
Yeah.
It feels scary,
Yeah.
It's like there's a part of me that absolutely knows without a shadow of a doubt I need to do it. I don't know that it's old stuff,
Yeah.
So it's like fear was here. And then I just spoke it out loud to some of my closest people and just said those words. I'm scared. And as soon as I spoke it and I allowed that to come through my body, then all of a sudden, everything just started to
So
line
great.
up,
Yeah.
So
Once you agree to be the vessel,
yeah,
it begins to move.
yeah,
So kudos to you for acknowledging and allowing and letting the fear be part of the process. It doesn't need to shut us down,
yeah.
and, I really love that as a leaping off point when we're talking about loving ourselves back into our lives. So when I say that phrase, to love ourselves back into our lives, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, I saw this image of, and I tell this a lot to my clients, is that like when we're born, when we are like birthed into the world, we come with this essence of love. There is nothing that we bring into the world in terms of fear, doubt, sadness. Like, yes, there are some things that I believe we inherit and come through the womb with us, and that goes deeper. But essentially, as a baby born and birthed, it's this vessel of aliveness and this sense of sort of like taking in everything that's here. And we move through life and things happen to us, and we as an undeveloped brain, and we absorb internalized beliefs about ourselves based off the things that happen to us. And I believe that when that happens, my sense is that we create these chambers within ourselves where parts of us go for refuge. And it's been my experience and that of, watching clients of mine, is that we have a key to unlock each of those chambers, but we don't actually know that we have that key. And as we are moving through life as a young being, we have this idea that our parents are supposed to do that for us, or that our teachers are supposed to do that for us, or the adults, the caregivers are supposed to do it for us.
The grown-ups.
The grown-ups, right? And when that doesn't happen, there's this thing that happens inside that we start to believe that there's a reason it didn't happen. And that reason it didn't happen is because of me, of something I did or didn't do, or these shoulds or shouldn'ts, or whatever that is, those cognitions. And we hold on to them and we claim them as our own. And then we move through the world holding those in our backpack and finding all the ways in which that story is true.
Yep. Yeah.
And so when I think about what does it mean to love ourselves back, it's like that pure essence of who we were, of when we were birthed into the world, was this free soul that has a mission of some sort, and we all have a different mission. And I think that for me, my journey has been to go inside those locked chambers within myself, to bring the key to each of those parts of me that found refuge and safety within my system as a protective mechanism to be and survive the world that I grew up in, and unlock all those keys in order to come into the world with my heart open and free from all the stuff that I learned to acquire along the way.
I love that you mentioned free and this idea of freedom and to be free in our bodies, free from is part of what I hear is this idea of being free from those locked places that we put ourselves in. And I just really want to point to the fact you're speaking as a woman with life experience who has been here and as a registered clinical counselor who has seen and done this work for and through and with others. Never mind your work as a coach at the national level where you're looking at performance, which is one of the places I know in my experience as a coach, that's where the rubber meets the road. And all the stuff we thought we had, all the training, all the prep, all the planning, all the schooling. And then we go, it almost worked. And that to me is what I love this idea of chambers. I've not heard it put like that before. And that there's opportunity to go and meet ourselves in each of those places. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that when you speak about performance, right, part of my story is that from a really young age, I learned what performance looked like and what praise of performance looked like. And so my system was able to attune to the external world of that. And, often I talk about how I now see, like, learn to leave my body in order to survive and be in those spaces, and didn't actually know what it was to be in my body because I spent more of my life out of my body than in it. Because if you were really to live inside your body as an athlete, you experience a lot of pain. So when I had knee dislocations multiple times, my knee would dislocate and I'd have to get in the water and perform. That feeling of fear of my knee popping out was constantly with me. If I sat and thought about it and was like attentive to my knee and present with the pain, like
Right.
you would not get on that pool deck.
Yeah.
If you were present with those feelings, you wouldn't go. And so it becomes survival. You have to lock that away in order to move through. Later in my clinical life of doing training in trauma, learned about this term dissociation. I sort of always, when I sort of learned about it, you kind of think, oh, people who dissociate are people who have real severe, like, mental health challenges. And what I learned was everybody that I worked with in high performance spaces had high levels of dissociation. That was like a major turn on its head. And then learned that I was highly dissociative.
Yeah. So let's talk about that for a second, because when we talk about loving ourselves back into our lives, generally speaking, it's because we've lived long enough to realize we're loving ourselves back from somewhere
Yeah.
that didn't work. So when you talk about dissociation, it's a term we hear all the time. I have ideas of what that means. What is it to dissociate? Where do we go if not in our body?
Yeah. I mean, our brain's wired for survival. And our brain will take us anywhere but to the point of pain. So if our brain learns that being in the body is scary or there's pain there, the brain will go, come over here, right? And so in sports psychology, in the realm of which I was trained and conditioned, everything's about outthinking what you do. And so this idea that you can, just think about the positive, or just like focus on the outcome, or just focus on this and then this and then this. And so what it does is it helps, I mean, in my training, right? It was think about this next moment and this next moment and this next moment. So in the sport of synchronized swimming, the routine's 3 minutes and 30 seconds, and you're focused on this arm stroke and this leg stroke and this breath hold. And, you get trained to focus ahead. Dissociation is not being here in the present. On the weekend, I walked with one of my former, she was a coach of mine and, a high level athlete. And I asked her when we were walking, I said, can you remember a time where you swam your routine and you remembered being so present in what you were doing that you enjoyed the moment of it? She said, no. And I said, right, because when that lactic acid started kicking in and you start to feel your legs flood with lactic acid, your brain goes, don't think about that. Don't think about that. Focus on this, look out here, and it starts distracting you. This is why I have such a hard time with this diagnosis of like ADD and ADHD and how the brain
Ah,
starts to go in all these places. I actually believe it's the brain's survival mechanism of going all these other places because it wasn't safe to be here.
yes. I
Yeah.
love that you name that. This is where I've been so steeping so deeply in Dr. Gabor Mate's work around all of this. And this idea of it's not safe to be here, that the coping mechanisms, and I feel you pointing to this,
Yeah,
is we go to safe places because of course we do. And that we are so clever, that we are so ingeniously designed that we can find that inside our own mind and
100%.
inside our own brain.
And, people go, have you noticed an increase in people doom scrolling? We have this idea that everyone's on their phone. And I'm like, oh no, this is just an adaptation to dissociation. The phone, we've adapted. So the scrolling is the brain going, I can't be here. I'm tired. There's a lot on my plate. I'm stressed. I'm whatever. And the brain chooses what's easy, right? To try and check out.
Yeah.
That is a check. Doom scrolling is checkout.
Yep.
And so then if we get curious about that, it's not about, oh, I shouldn't be on my phone, or, oh, I should set up these. What is creating, what happens in you the moment you decide to pick up the phone? And like, let's get curious about that. It's not that the phone is here as this big thing. There's a reason we're there. But this, when you talk about safety, I've been thinking a lot about this because when I first started Shift Change, there was a conversation I had, and someone said, well, you're not here to change the stigma of mental health. And at the time, I was like, well, why not? But now, what I've actually realized is that I'm here to I have built a space that creates a felt sense of safety. And what I've learned in my own journey first was that a felt sense of safety within the body. I'm not sure that a lot of us actually were provided a
Yep.
space in our life growing up where there was a felt sense of safety. And when I say that, what do I mean? It means that when something happened that was distressing, was my system soothed in that moment or witnessed in that moment, so that that initial shock that I experienced, whether it was a parent yelling or it was, some kind of event that happened, when my system felt shock, did I have someone come and help me soothe and bring breath back to my body? Or did I hold the shock? So when I think of, if we go back to the chambers,
Hmm.
I've been thinking about this a lot, is that how do I help people understand what I do? It's a place to transform the shock that we absorb, that most of us have normalized since we were young, because nobody knew how to help us with that. And if people did treat shock, so if we think about more extreme example of like you're in a car accident, the ambulance would show up and put a blanket around your shoulders and give you a teddy, and they would treat your physical body for shock, but they wouldn't treat your brain for shock.
Right.
And we know that shock enters into the brain and the body goes and we hold.
Yep.
And then what? Who's helping us with this holding? And I've been thinking about this. My mom would always say to me as a teenager, you always sigh, Kara. She's always like, you always sigh. You're always sighing. And I was like, I don't know, mom. Like, and then I thought it was because I was a synchronized swimmer. I was like, oh, so I just was taught to hold my breath. That's why I hold my breath, because I was always just, and not belly breathing. And when I learned to belly breathe in my like late 20s, I was like, what is this thing of breathing in my belly? That's a weird thing. Who breathes in their belly?
Right. Yeah.
And it's because my system had been holding shock for all these years, unprocessed, and all the chambers inside my system at each age of my life had to learn how to hold this shock, hold that shock, hold that shock, and store it and store it and store it.
I really want to highlight this for the listener and for myself too, this piece that you're speaking to of sometimes you talk about stress and just, I feel like I've been holding my breath. It's literal. Like it's actually true that the exhale and the idea of finding an exhale so that we can have a natural breath was a huge part of me coming back to myself, me restoring my relationship and in my language, it's getting friendly with all of the parts of myself again.
Yeah.
So that there's no part that I'm either shunning or mad at or embarrassed by or too traumatized to meet, but just friendly. I don't have to love everybody yet, but just get friendly. So let's back up. Let's talk about your origin story. So why this work for you? Like what took you and led you here?
I mean, there's a lot of parts of me that have a story.
Yes.
So I feel like I have to say that because sometimes there's a lot of stories and sometimes I can get lost in which story to share. I think that for the purpose of this conversation, when I was 13, my dad was diagnosed with terminal cancer and he was given 1 to 4 years to live. He lived 4 years with terminal cancer. So by the time they found it, it started in his colon and then it spread to his liver. And so they said that the chances of him making it 4 years were like, I don't know, those stats were like 8% or 10% at that time. And he was determined to live, you know? And so what I grew up in is what I consider and call now name in my business is ongoing traumatic stress. So I have this life-changing moment where we were sat down, in our backyard and told that my dad had cancer. It was in July in the summertime. And at a time where there was no community holding space for our family or anything like that. People found out that my dad had cancer, and my first experience of what that looked like was avoidance. People avoided our family. Why? Because people don't know how to talk to you when you've been diagnosed with something.
Yeah.
And so I did not have my family did not have community around us. In fact, a lot of people that were sort of in our circle and around us started to pull away and withdraw because they didn't know what to say, they didn't know how to act, they didn't know really how to be around us. And so my dad, who was a very social, I mean, he was the president of a synchronized swimming club. Here's a man who was like very into sports. He had 3 girls. He wanted them all to play hockey. They didn't. They did this thing with their legs in the air and he got so involved in it and he knew everybody. And you go from being a very social public person in the world to where people see you and they turn the other way. And so I had to watch that happen. And not only did I have to watch that happen, but I was the oldest. And my mom was now holding the family in terms of financially because the job that my dad had, he worked with TELUS, but he was in sales. And so when you're in sales, you have a base salary and then you make commission. So he goes on sick leave and he makes his base salary. So now what our family had for an income substantially decreased. So now my mom was a teacher at a time where no teachers got time off. They didn't get to leave because their kids were not well. She couldn't go with my dad to chemo or anything like that. And so here's my mom putting on her back this sense of responsibility to try and not only support her family, but financially be this person and get us all to our sports and.
Right.
So my mom did not have the capacity emotionally to attend to what was happening because if she would have done that, she probably would have fallen apart, right? So
Yeah.
she had to do what she was trained to do, which is to push through and keep carrying on. So I saw that happen in my mom. I saw my dad completely avoid and decide to bury what he was experiencing. So there was never a conversation about how he was feeling, or we just saw his anger. And me being the oldest, as I was going through my development of being the oldest daughter, right, who's changing. I'm going through puberty and I'm high school and you're changing and you're figuring yourself out and boys are coming in. And the older I got, and now as I've done a lot of work and reflected on that, it was because he was so out of control with what was happening in his life that the only way he knew how to be in the world is to put his control on me. And so that meant try and control what I wore to school, whether I wore makeup to school, like this, like just
Yep.
clench for dear life.
Grip, grip, grip. Yep.
And I'm driving my dad to chemo. And people don't know because I'm not telling people that I'm leaving math class in grade 10 to drive my dad to chemo, right? So I live in this life of 4 years of ongoing traumatic stress, everyday appointments, updates. You're learning about all these things. And then eventually one day he dies. And he told us he was never going to die. So now we're left with this grief. And we've never talked to him about it. We don't know if he was scared about it. We never had a chance to process it. My middle sister flies home from Montreal where she's billeting with a family to compete, internationally with synchronized swimming. She flies home the day my dad passes away to say goodbye. And my younger sister's 12 years old and it's a whole story. So here we are as this unit of living through this time. And then, I'm 18 years old in the world now. And now what? I'm not
Right.
the same as other 18-year-olds, you know? I'm not
Nope.
interested in going to bars and drinking and having this fun life that, most people get to experience. Like, my life has just done this, and all my friends are living life, and I'm not connected. There's no community around us. There's nothing. And so that sort of that period of time created so much distress inside of my system, ongoing distress in my system. And it manifested in many ways. I struggled with an eating disorder, which now I tell people that was a physical manifestation of the chaos in my home, of the unprocessed emotions that were happening in my circle, and how my teenage brain found a way to cope was
Yep.
to turn against myself, find all the reasons why, whatever the stories were, and then beat myself up about it because I could control that. I couldn't control my dad was dying, but I could control my body. I could control what I looked like. I could control, so when you talk about can we make friends with those parts of us? I look back at that time of my life and I see that girl with the swollen face and I just look at her and I feel so much for her. Like if there's any part that moves me still after all the work, it's that girl because there was so much she was carrying and she turned it as a weapon against herself,
Yep.
And there's so much in that she just needed someone to sit with her and help her be with everything that was happening in her life?
Yeah. I heard this beautiful thing just in the last 6 months sometime that and it was I think of this for women, but I hope that it's true for men as well. That we are all, if we stay conscious to the process, we are becoming the people our younger selves would have been
Oh, yeah.
safe with.
Oh, yeah. And so that speaks to the felt sense of safety, right?
Uh-huh.
It's not that my parents didn't want to create a safe home. It's that when things happen and adults are in chaos and adults are in distressing moments, they are in survival and they cannot create safety for their children when they're in survival. And so everyone then ends up in survival, right? And
Right.
so what is safe? It's like, maybe 5 years ago, I learned how to find safety within myself, but my brain still wanted to find chaos because that's what it knew. So
Yep.
there'd be so many moments where I was in such a beautiful, beautiful place, like just looking around going, wow, this is the life I've made for myself. And my brain's like, are you sure you don't want to be at that gathering with that thing and that thing and that thing? I'm like, this is so confusing. And so as I became way more conscious,
Yeah.
I started to see the operation of the brain. And I started to go, oh, that's how we get sucked back in. That's how we get hooked into drama or chaos or old patterns because the brain doesn't choose safety. That's not how it's designed. It chooses familiar. And if you grow up in chaos and survival, you look for chaos and survival. Your brain knows how to be there, right? Trained chaos expert. If something happens, you want me with you because I'm going to know exactly what to do when that whole thing starts going down like instantly. My
Yep.
body lived in a hypervigilant state at all times. Right. And so then you look fast forward my life of coaching, being in coaching for Team Canada, like being in intense spaces where there was so much happening and things happening that really I felt shouldn't be happening. And yet I look back and I think, how did I stay in that for so long, in that chaos and dysfunction? It's because my system was primed and prepped for it. It knew
Yes.
exactly how to be in it. And she would have never said, I can't be here because she was like, this is where I thrive. I
Yep.
know this, even though it was costing me my physical health.
Did you know it was costing you your physical health at the time?
So I had, so the gift of my dad was that when he passed away, we were told that by 25, we should start having regular colonoscopies. And I advocated for that when I moved to Vancouver and had my first colonoscopy at 25. And they found a carcinogenic tumor in my colon that 1% of people have. It's like they said it's the kind that they put on med board exams and try and fail people. Like that's what I had. I didn't tell anybody about that. So they take it out. And they're like, oh, we got to monitor you. Okay. So they do that. I have this weird knee thing that happens, and it's like a, what is it called? Like some kind of tumor growing in my knee that I have taken out. They can't find any reason for it. I start to have like sweats in the middle of the night, and they're like, oh, it's because of postpartum. You've had twins. You're still 2 years later, you're still in postpartum. I went through internal health, like every internal health medicine test they could possibly run on me. They couldn't find anything. So these weird, random, nobody could explain
Yep.
things are happening in my body, and nobody has an explanation, and nobody even asks me of my life.
Right.
Nobody's like, hey, what is your trauma? Like, do you have any trauma in your life? Like, what happened in your life that this might be happening? No, nothing, nothing. And weird random things. I would go into appointments and people would do things and I'd say, hey, I'm the 1%. I'm the 1%. You do a knee surgery on me, which I had when I was 19, and I had the 1% chance it would be infected. That was me. And it was like, even as I look back at that, I was so dissociative of my body that it was like, go to the appointment. They're going to take the thing out. Yeah, yeah. You come back, you get checked, whatever, go back into the harm.
Right. Keep going. I'm struck by, because I did pretty intense battle with autoimmune disease for a while. Right. And so for me, there's a bunch of story to that, but the salient part is, I had degenerative joint disease. And so my
Okay.
joints were starting to shut down. And I went to this rheumatologist and we tried a number of things. And then I went in one day and he looked at me, he's like, you've become my problem child. Back to that 1%, right? He's like, you're my problem child. Something should have worked or done something by now. So full stop. I want you to stop all the medications. Talk to me about what you're putting in your body. I want to understand your relationships and tell me about your stress. Oh,
Mm. Oh, yeah.
that was
See,
weird.
that's a
Yeah.
winning moment.
There is a winning moment. And I remember looking at him, I'm like, what? And I burst into tears. He's like, okay, we're getting in. He listened to my story. And for a Western medical rheumatologist
Yeah.
to be asking these questions, what a gift that
Yeah.
was. He put me in therapy. I mean, I wasn't averse to therapy. I'd been doing it over time, but he wanted me to get a little bit more specific, seeing a nutritionist, looking at my diet. And truly, he said, we're not putting you on any more medication until
Wow.
these two things are handled.
Good for
And I
him.
just think, what a gift.
What a
And I
gift.
remember when my therapist said to me, when did you decide that your body was the enemy?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
If you know, you know.
Yeah.
And it was such a powerful shift. And I'll say I've been almost 5 years completely symptom free when you start looking at all of these things. So I appreciate you sharing that your body, and this dissociative piece, things are still connected somewhere.
Yeah.
So where we put in our body is a source of fascination for me.
Yeah.
As you've done this work, do you find that your body has started to work with you as
Oh,
well? What's different now?
oh, yeah. I mean, like, I would say that as I unlocked chambers, every time I unlocked one, my intuition around what I needed was louder. And so now it's like I might feel, I don't know, like my body will just go, oh, I need to add a little bit of salt into my water. Like I'm missing something here. I might feel like it's wild because it really depends on what the situation is. But my intuition goes, your body needs this thing. You need to go for a walk. And I think the shoulds operated in my life for so long, even when I finished as an athlete and I started coaching, and there was this whole idea around how do you keep your body fit and the aesthetic of it, and you should work out for an hour and you should do these things. And I was very like I could follow the script.
Yes.
It was never, do you want to?
What a
Does you
concept.
does your body want to do this thing? Or are you
Yeah.
forcing yourself to do the thing? And I think that the shift happened really, I think, when I got pregnant with my girls. When I got pregnant with my twins, I say, I've written a letter to them that one day I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but they forced me into my body. And that's what it took. It took a twin pregnancy that made me so sick every day for 10 months with two toddlers under the age of 3. And that forced like feeling of I felt trapped inside of myself because I couldn't make it better.
Yeah.
And the only thing I could do to survive the sickness and the migraines and everything that was there was to just ask myself, what do you need right now? Like, what do you need in this? Like, it would literally be sometimes minute by minute by minute. What do you need right now to be able to survive this next thing? And it was always a body thing because I was so ill. And that shifted once they were born. I started to ask myself, like, what's going to feel good now? Whether it's movement or whether it's what I eat or what do I drink. And I started to move from that place of asking myself that question. I still do that. I'm looking at my Peloton. If I want to move my body, I go, okay, body, what are we doing? 10, 20, 30? I might put 30 on and at 10 minutes left, I'm like, yeah, I'm good. We get off.
Yeah.
And I'm the fittest I've ever been. This is the wild thing is that my
Yep.
body is the strongest it's ever been because when I'm there, it's moving with intention and with a desire to be strong and to feel something, whether I'm offloading something or I want to, gain strength or whatever it is. But I'm in charge of that intuitively. And so the
Yep.
body everything works together.
That's so great. So the idea of getting into our bodies can sound
Oh, yeah.
so cryptic. Like
Oh,
it
yeah.
can have it's like, what does that mean? Of course I'm in my body. Where else would I be? And then for people who are one step further, who've gone into the body and felt, ouch, epic, cosmic, ouch, why would I do this? Either my knee hurts that badly or this memory is too big. I
Uh-huh.
can't cope. How did you nurture yourself and how do you speak to your clients? I assume they're related
Okay, so
on how to
good.
move through that.
It's so good because I'm a year in, Shift Change is a year in with bringing our protocol to a police department. We've been working for a year. So it's awesome
And
because
Shift Change is the company that you started that is
yes,
about the safe space that you're the
yes.
CEO of. Yeah.
Okay. So the thing that makes it ours is that it's an anonymous space and it's nonverbal. So here's the thing. Let's go back to when I talked about shock. We first experienced shock. So when we first experience a shocking moment and our body goes, and then we didn't know what to do. Now, all of a sudden, we didn't have that. And we go, this feels so bad. What do we do? Push down, push down, push down, push down, push down. And then the next time, so what happens is our brain has a seed that gets planted. Plant. Now, the next time my system feels a shock, the brain goes, I remember this. So it happens again. The brain develops another level of another channel of association in the brain. So another pathway gets developed on the body going, and so then what is anxiety and panic? It's when the body starts to go, and we start to feel the chest beating. And now this is the layers and layers of shocking moments of each shock layered on top of each other like this. And so when it starts to rise up into the body and people start to have panic attacks and they have anxiety and they start to feel this vibration, that is, I don't know how old it is. For me, it was decades of my life building up until it explodes. That's what happens. Now, in Shift Change, this protocol, which is an EMDR protocol that we use it's for a recent event. So its purpose is to treat the shock.
Let's describe what is EMDR.
Yeah, so it stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing.
It's amazing. It was magic in my life.
So when we experience shock, it gets stored in the right hemisphere, and the right hemisphere of the brain is responsible for everything we feel. And so when you think about the vibration of and this, body holds it right on the right side of the brain. Now, the crazy part is the left side of the brain is the logic side. And this is what we were all taught to do. You just don't think about this thing. So your body's vibrating and you've been taught, don't think about the vibration. Don't think about the vibration, even though your body's still vibrating. And what happens is it eventually has these episodes, right? What the EMDR does is it brings the stuck shock, let's just say shock, stress, however we want to call it, from the right side of the brain where it's activated and charged, and it moves it to the left side of the brain, which helps the brain to integrate it. So when we think about this stress or shock, I like to think about it as a fragmented, like it's a puzzle piece
Yep.
that doesn't have a puzzle. And when we plug it into the left side of the brain, all of a sudden we start to see the puzzle and the picture. And when you're moving through the process, in my platform of how we do this, we do bilateral tapping. So we tap right and left. There's all different ways to do EMDR, but in a group space, that's what we do. And as you're tapping your body, you're bringing this vibration charge down to a zero. And so you're helping your brain make sense of what's happened, and you're sucking the charge out of the experience. That's what we didn't get.
Yeah.
That's what we didn't get. And so then the part of the model that has been so successful is that how I was taught to do the protocol is on Zoom where everyone can see each other, and it's what therapy does. We all sit together in a circle. But guess what? Guess what? There are a lot of folks that have been in spaces, in systems, in homes where that is not safe. And so they completely dissociate and check out from those spaces, or they don't even enter them to begin with. And it was through me listening to a client of mine when I first offered the idea, and he said, "You're not going to get people to come, especially not the men." And at that time it was like a gender thing, but I've since realized it's actually not. Anyone who has learned and grown up in their masculine
Yep.
of toughness, which lots of women have, but you grow up in your masculine of having the armor. So if we think about our chambers of defense, we create protection around the heart, because the first heartbreak that happens, what do? We go, my dad died. And I go, I will never love again because that heartbreak was so painful that nobody is going to come close to my heart ever. Boom, lock goes on the heart. And I start to create defenses for the heart. And so my chambers and all the guards that I've built inside there, they come and they're like, yeah, we're not letting anyone
Right.
in there. And that's what all these spaces have had happen, because we don't have spaces that have created a sense of safety for whatever reason, right? And so in our offering, when we decided to make the protocol be anonymous so that people couldn't see each other and they didn't have to talk,
Yep.
which is the opposite of what everyone knows about therapy,
Yes.
people started dropping in. People started to come in and they started to be guided in the process of, here, this shocking event happens. Now my body's losing charge. And everybody says, I had no idea I was holding that. I didn't know my body was feeling that until they're done processing it, because now we're helping the brain make sense. We're helping the body take out the charge, and they go, holy crap, I feel better. Now, inside our system, we learn it's safe to be here,
Yep.
because there is this thing that's going to help me with this hard moment of vibration. I am going to be able to come back, get grounded, feel my feet on the ground. And so then I go, I want to go back to that. That thing's going to help me.
What you're developing is a sense of trust in our own system. Like we
Yes.
can learn this self-trust.
Yes.
I have the capacity for hard.
Yes.
And the way that you describe it is really helpful to me in terms of understanding the science, because when I did EMDR, the way I described it was I still have the memory of the thing,
Yeah.
but it decoupled
Yeah.
the charge from the recollection.
Yeah.
And those two things were now separate. And what I love about what you're describing is I can feel the space that opens up inside of us.
Yeah.
Instead of us packing and throwing it, I'm thinking about, I just moved 2 weeks ago, and what is packed in our storage in the basement right now is on top of each other. And we just had to start making spaces, and it will be our winter project. It's a little bit, comes out, and we're selling stuff, we're blending two households. But this idea of, if we can create space that is not vibrating
Yes.
with that shock,
Yes.
like, what do we do with that stillness? So then what comes up for me as the next question, Kara, is like, how is there a way that our nervous system, I mean, think about how to phrase this. What I'm trying to get at, I guess, is what does our nervous system that's not used to peace
Yeah.
do with peace?
Yeah. It takes time.
Yeah. It took me time.
It takes time, but it's repetition, right?
Yep.
And so it's an interesting thing, right? Because when you think about, how do you feel after you do a yoga class, or how do you feel after a lovely walk when the leaves are falling with someone that you really love, it's like you have these juicy moments where you feel so alive. And if we can repeat those over time, our system goes, okay. And so I have this really interesting thing that happened to me in August. And, here I am really trying to get clarity around my message, right? Because lots of people are like, "Oh, she doesn't," they'll hear me talk about shift change and then they go, "Well, she doesn't think therapy is good." I'm like, "Wait, I'm a therapist. Like, this is what I do
Right.
in the world. What do you mean?" But
Yes.
my message still needs refining. And so what they were hearing is, do this and don't do therapy. And what I needed to clarify was that when we talk about something stressful and traumatic and it hasn't been processed and it's still stuck in the right side, we activate the neural central that goes danger, danger, danger. And we will re-traumatize ourselves in the storytelling of the thing.
Yep.
Now, I can be in lots of spaces now and talk about lots of moments of my life. I didn't cry, I didn't unravel, but I had to go into if I think about my dad as an example, right? When he passed away, it was a beautiful day. We were all surrounded by him. It was a magical exit. And I stayed in the room with him after he passed away because I knew my dad hated to be alone. And I was in that room with him for hours after he passed. So you're now, as an 18-year-old, with your deceased father, and anyone who's been with someone who's passed away, it's a traumatic experience, right? And so that moment planted here, and I couldn't see my dad any other way except for that moment in his bed until someone said to me when I was 19, you should go do EMDR. That was my first experience of doing EMDR, was after my dad died. Now, that's not the story I was going to tell you, but that was a moment.
Yes.
So here I am going, if I had just had this protocol that I offer, where I could have just gone into a space for 50 minutes and tapped with that moment with my dad,
Yep.
we could have just moved on. But that
Yep.
didn't happen for me. So my brain had to develop some other levels of association related to this thing. But that's not the story. The story is that in August, I was driving home and received a text message from one of my childhood best friend's husband. And I mean, I hadn't talked to him for a decade. So I saw the text message come in and I knew I was going to get bad news. And I thought, oh no. And so always what happens when I know, and I've had a lot of people, pass in my life. It's part of my, whatever, my soul is, sort of a midwife to that passing. I feel like, but so I see this message come in and I say to myself, okay, we know how to do this. So this is what's different, right? 19-year-old me was like, didn't know how to be with death. 42-year-old me goes, I'm about to get some news about someone passing, and I think it's my childhood best friend. So I say to myself, okay, Kara, we know how to do this. We're going to go to the water. We're going to take off our shoes. I called my close friend. I said, hey, I'm about to get some bad news. I'm letting you know. I'm going to go sit on a bench. I'm going to put my feet in the ground. I ground myself. I take some breaths. The heron comes and sits with me. So I've got the heron with me. I've got all this life around me. And I think I'm going to bypass this shock thing because I know how. Like, this is what I do for a living. Like,
Right.
I'm fine. We're going to ground our feet in this earth and we're going to take our deep breaths and this is going to be so fine. And so I go, okay. So I call him back and he gives me the news that my childhood best friend has passed away. And the consciousness of myself, because there's so much, I literally felt the moment he actually, even though I knew it was coming, this
Yep.
idea that we can brace ourselves for these moments is totally BS because I'm
Yes.
trying to do it. So this is why I'm telling the story. I'm trying to brace myself for the shock that I know is coming. I literally feel it enter in my brain as if, in the hospital, how they have that lifeline thing. So I literally feel the shock come into my brain like this. And
Like a
all of this,
wave.
like a wave. And then all of a sudden, I feel my brain go like this and it clenches. And all of a sudden, I'm on the phone with her husband and I have no idea what to say. This is what I do for a living.
Yep.
I have no idea. And all I can say to him is, I don't know what to say right now. I don't know what to say. Even though I knew what to say 10 minutes before.
Yeah.
I thought I was going to be. And so then from that space, had that conversation. My friend came, she sat with me and I'm still breathing. And my brain is having this whole experience of shock happening and it's sort of bubbling and it's vibrating and there's all these things happening and I can feel my heart. And eventually I come home and, you know, I don't advocate people to do MDR on their own, but it's what I do for a living. And so I start tapping, like I can't sleep. My system's
Yeah.
vibrating and it's charged and I can't go to sleep. It's 1 in the morning and I have things to do tomorrow. I have 4 kids. So and so I start tapping with myself and I'm tapping and so much it starts to come up because I'm like, it's fine. You're going to be fine. You've been through this so many times, but no, everything from the past, and this is a friend who was the first person who showed up in my home after my dad died. So there's a whole story of her in my life in really hard moments. And it took me a couple of months to stabilize, even with everything that I know. But I was able to attend to my shock with the EMDR that I know how to do. I had the resources around me because I've learned who those people
That's such a
are,
big deal.
my osteopath, all my people, and I was able to honor that friendship, that relationship, that loss in a way that was really meaningful for me. I didn't have to sort of go out into the world and try and do and the busyness that can come when I just attended to it. And that's the gift of everything that's happened in my life is that my brain now goes, even though I was trying to escape it, my
Yep.
brain still went, I know how to do this. I can do this. I can be with this. Where the old brain went, oh my gosh, I don't have time for this. I can't do this right now. This is too much for me. This is too big. What am I going to do? I've got and the blah, 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 down into
Yep.
the black abyss of overwhelm, right?
Yes.
My brain was like, we know how to do this, even though it needed some support. And I think that's the message of why I share the story is that we will never not need that support. And that's why that the shifting and the processing has to happen. Like this is AI is not going to take this over.
No.
You could have, and there is, even though it's not ethical to do EMDR on your own, there are platforms that allow you to do it. And I've done it on myself. But the attachment, the things that have really deep wounding when it comes with a person, you have to have a presence and a witness to repair a hard moment. And you need someone to witness that suffering with you. And no computer AI is ever going to be able to replace the heartbeat of a person sitting with your heartbeat. Like it's just not going to
Yes.
happen. Robot or no robot.
No. And so many things are coming out for me, Carol. One of which is this idea that the more tooled we get, the
Yeah.
more present we
Yeah.
become. Those are good things, but they don't save us from the human experience.
No.
Right? We
No.
still move through the seasons. We still need time. And the invitation that is so beautiful that you describe is it allows us to sit with and honor grief and sorrow and pain in a way that doesn't bypass us. We're not going to get to a place where
That's
it's
right.
like, okay, somebody I love died. What's for dinner?
That's right.
Right? And that's not the goal. The goal of the human experience, in my view, is to feel all the things, to experience everything that this existence allows us and gives us access to,
Yeah.
but in a way that allows us to integrate it, that
Yeah.
allows us to move with it. And so being able to honor yourself in that space and honor your friend and honor what your body was going through, like that as a trifecta just is such good medicine. And I hope that everybody can hear that. What's it like to be you now? That's a great experience of a hard moment. But when you think about the day to day, what it's like to be you now versus what it was like to be you 10 years ago,
Yeah. Well,
what's different?
it's interesting that how we started the conversation because yesterday, like in that moment with that experience with my friend, what I heard was you're meant to also come into the world and hold community and space for people as they transition through something. You cannot begin something new without honoring the ending of something that's happening. And that honoring and that space of holding that in between is such a sacred space, and it can be the loneliness space. That space between an ending and a beginning is the hardest, I think.
Yes.
And that's what I'm being asked to do is to be the person that brings community together, to sit, to process, to actually bring, the EMDR there so that I can teach people how to do this thing that I know how to do, because I think what I've learned is that my life was hard. There's a lots of hard moments in my life. And there used to be a time where I used to feel like, why does the bad stuff keep happening? Like, why do I have to keep experiencing so much loss? Everything feels hard. There was no handout offered to me in any place of my life, no matter what it was. And I think now I look at it and I am able to see like, oh, my soul was meant to experience all of that in order to be in the world today, to sit across from people and to stand in front of people and embody a deep inner knowing of what it is to be in that threshold so that I
Yep.
can be the holder of that space. And that gift I get to bring four of my children. Because when I had my twins, literally, I was like, what the hell? You are giving me four children and I'm about to I'm a single mom, right? Like my marriage, I'm like, you're about to give me four children and start my life over. Like, what the actual is happening? Right.
Yep.
But now, even in my days, things show up for me and I go, huh, what's the lesson here?
Yeah.
What am I supposed to take from this? And yesterday was a beautiful example. I'm in this space and I'm supposed to be, I'm thinking I'm going to this thing and I'm going to be inspired and all these things. And I'm there thinking, why am I here? What is the lesson for me here? What the heck? And then as I sit and ask that, the next thing's revealed and the next thing's
Yep.
revealed. And, part of that first part of my life was living in the masculine of the doing and the pushing and the proving. And there's a whole story around that. And, and now as I've been able to shift and the chambers inside of me have been unlocked. My heart is open. And when I share with you about being the person that's going to lead spaces where that happens, like I have to step into that fully in my heart. That's a whole nother level that my heart's going to have to experience in such an open way. And it's scary still.
Uh-huh.
And I also know that I can do it, you
Yep.
know? And so that embodied sense inside of me goes, something comes up and maybe where I used to sort of go, did I do something wrong here? Should I have done something better? Could I have prevented that hypervigilance of trying to make sure bad things didn't happen? Because that's what that was the fallout. That was the manifestation of bad things happening in my life, was trying to prevent bad things from happening.
Right.
And now it goes, okay, this thing just showed up. You got this email. This was a no. And you go, huh, okay, wasn't meant to be there. All right, let that one go. This email came in, this situation, huh, what's the teaching for me in this moment? How do I need to adjust and pivot in that? And trusting that what is meant for me will be here. There is no hustling for it. There is
Nope.
no proving it. I'm not holding it as a badge of honor anymore. Like, none of that feeds my soul. What feeds my soul is that when you said the being able to help people find that within them, I'm not a guru. I'm not somebody that's leading people because I have magic. I have unlocked my own medicine within myself, and I'm here to guide people to find their medicine within themselves so that
Yes.
as a collective, that is what comes into our community and into our spaces. See that in my one-to-one work is I help people unlock their chambers. And when they do, it is freaking magical. And that's what lights me up.
Yeah.
Every time that happens for somebody, I'm like, I have the best job ever.
I so get that in my way also, right? Of being able to see something click in for somebody else and help them remember something that was their own.
Rebecca Campbell is someone who I feel guided me through the dark, right?
Uh-huh.
I found her, like, her books and her stuff, and so she guided me through these really dark moments, and she talks a lot about like finding your own inner temple, and that inner temple within you is your magic, and it's not outside of us. Where again, when you understand trauma and you understand survival, as young children, when we're trying to survive a situation, we're looking at what's happening in our environment and trying to, not get in trouble, or we're trying to find safety in it. And so then we look outside of ourselves to find that instead of inside, because nobody taught us how to go inside.
Right.
And so you talked about people not feeling safe in their body, it's because we haven't been taught how to come inside and find safety there. And so the when I talk about masculine energy of this pushing and this like throw everything on your back, like it's always like to me like the gladiator in the movies or the warrior
Yes.
that's just like, oh, I got the thing, they got the, and that like energy of just bulldozing through. And I would say that we've had many when you go back and look at what happened when people came out of the wars, right? It's like all of these people who were in war were traumatized by it. And we lived in a time where nobody wanted to talk. You were supposed to be grateful you survived war. And so it was buried inside the family that you were struggling. And then that's when, mostly alcohol started to become a thing, and it was silence. And there's all these holding of secrets inside
Yes.
homes. And so then the women are, trying to manage all of this. And so what is it to be in your feminine is to receive and to nurture and soft touches and like just this allowing, things to come to you, right? But
Yeah.
that's not what I grew up seeing because, like I said,
Nope.
my mom had to throw on her back and be the freaking warrior in our family. And so did my grandma and her grandma and her. Like, so it goes all the way down my mother line. And because my dad was socialized to be the warrior, I had this epiphany a couple weeks ago as I was talking to a friend again, trying to clarify my message. And it hit me. I was like, how is it that I'm able to be in rooms with these police officers and these people who are so stoic and holding so much? My dad was so that I could feel his pain and suffering, and he could not express it. Like he left the world holding all of that, not having anybody witness how terrified he must have been, how sad he would have been to leave like when I think about that still, it makes me so sad that like he took that with him.
Yep.
And what's the world that I want for my children? I
Yes.
don't want my children growing up in a world where they are going to die holding every heartbreaking moment inside of them till their last breath. Like that's not the life I want them to live. And so what does that mean? In me, it's like I'm been trained in that masculine energy of doing, of pushing. And when I became a mother, big
Yeah.
emotions are happening with your children all the time. And if you're not going to be the one that avoids and says, oh, be quiet, stop crying, and you want to attend to it, I had to learn how to do that for myself before I could do that for my
Yes.
kids.
Yep.
Because I'll tell you, my gut reaction was not sit down on the ground and help console and soothe them.
Yep.
Mine was like, just stop. That's too much. Stop that noise. It's too much. It's too much. And there's a whole thing, right, around that.
Whole thing. And I
Yeah.
think too many of us try and mother alone.
Oh, yeah.
That is just our village is so broken. And so that's
Yeah.
another distinction or difference shift that I want to point to
Yeah.
is how much aloneness you had and isolation through this journey versus you knowing how to make a call
Yeah.
and not just knowing how, being willing to
Yeah.
make a call to
Yeah.
someone dear to you. And, that's what this podcast is about. That's what my work is about. That's what, for me, it's all about insourcing instead of outsourcing our value and our worth. Let's start insourcing all of this and counting ourselves as one of our own best allies, as one of the best resources we have access to, because I think we push that out. But by the
Well,
time, go ahead.
when you go back to being a child and needing help, if help wasn't there and you weren't taught to ask for help, if you were told to figure it out, there's no learning around asking for help. And if you did not see your caregivers, the adults asking for help, what the heck do you know about asking for help?
Zero.
Zero.
Yeah.
So again, you have to trust help is going to come.
Yeah. Well, and the journey of the betweens.
Yeah.
Where I want to really point to this place of the betweens where we are clumsy, because that's what it is when we're learning something new.
That's right.
When we're taking on a new behavior. And so this idea of asking for help, I remember when women started to show up for me and I began to learn about women friendships and the sisterhood that is possible. And there are so many women I bow to who taught me this, kicking and screaming, I will say. My girlfriend Heather, who looked at me one day, she goes, you got two options. You are in your cave. Either I am coming in with you or I am throwing in a grenade and knocking you out. The choice is yours. But I love you you, and I will not let you sit there by yourself.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm like, what is happening right now? And then all the way to the sisters who would anoint me with oil and sit with me in
Yeah.
tears and hold in sacred space and ceremony. And so I hold this vision for the world where the village starts to weave itself back together, to knit itself back together. And I bow to the work that you are doing, you
Mm,
yourself personally, the work you have done for your younger self, because I
thank
do believe absolutely, and we've all seen it somewhere, that the healing work that we do for ourselves, any place we heal, heals the women around us, before us and behind us, right?
you.
And with Shift Change, that you're making this available. So, where do people find more of you and what you're bringing into the world?
Yeah. Well, shiftchange.life is where we live in that space. We've again the feminine receiving of, putting it out there and trusting that I was shown the mission, not because it was on my vision board. I didn't vision it. I
Yeah.
didn't sit and go, I'm gonna be an entrepreneur and build, like, it was the farthest thing. I wanted to be an Olympic coach. Let's be real about that. There was no entrepreneur blood inside of my body that was like, let's build a business. But it was revealed to me, and so that mission is a gift of me going into the chambers and doing the work. So many people go, oh, I don't know what my mission is. Right. Go within yourself, because the key is inside there. And that's
Yes.
what I know to be true. And when you find it and you align with it, it is so freaking easy. It's not like I could write a book about how easy it's been. And it's funny because every time I get an email or a phone call that's like, "Hey, can we meet with you?" And they're this big thing, I'm like, what is happening? You can't make this
Yes.
up. Like, this
Can't.
is wild, right? And
Yeah.
it's exciting. And it's like, man, more people need to know this.
Yep.
People are killing themselves, hustling and proving and grinding and making themselves sick. Guess what? Over here, I know it sounds so like such a like bizarre and kind of like abstract thing, but I'm living the proof of it.
Yep.
And so, yeah, shiftchange.life is there. And, our focus right now is really in coming into corporate spaces, because again, when you talk about what is it for people to feel safe, I think a lot of people sort of have an experience where the corporate space believes that when you're unwell, it's your responsibility to find
Yep.
help. And I actually disagree with that. And I think that actually well, in Canada anyways, you have a legal obligation to ensure that your people are well. And we have a lot of EAP programs and different kinds of services that are offered. The utilization rate is very low. And the people who are signing off and paying that sort of unknowingly, they don't even know what's in it or what is
Yeah.
offered or what the experience of people who use it. And so I feel like that's also part of my mission, is how do I start educating people about like what is the need and how can we do this better? And it's not to sort of go, oh, well, you should know better. It's we didn't know better and
Right.
now we do.
Yeah.
So now we can take steps to go, let's learn, right?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
how and there are a few bright lights in the world, and they're
Yeah.
becoming more and more, who are stepping forward, and you as one of them on the forefront. And I feel like there was a whole wave ahead of us
Yeah.
that paved a way
Yeah.
for those of us that are here now in the next wave. And there will be another who will come that will be even more readily available. And it just feels really good
Yeah.
and nourishing and connecting to know that we're part of something bigger. We are not going to make or break the wave, but man, if your medicine
Yeah.
gets access, right, how much it can move it forward so that more people can build on that after.
Well, and when you talked about being in sisterhood, I believe, and I've written about that, until we can hold our own heart, we can't hold the heart of anyone that comes to us, whether it's our
Yeah.
spouse or our children or whoever. And that is the gift that oftentimes people do for outside of them, the caregivers outside of them. But truthfully, if it starts here, that's where the ripple happens, because
Yeah.
you can be in sisterhood because those women have sat with their heartbreaks and now they know how to hold a space where others can do that too. That's power,
It's
right?
so true. And
Yeah.
then they equipped me in ways that
Yeah.
we couldn't predict. I'm not even in touch with most of those women now,
Yeah.
because the decades pass and seasons and cycles and
That's right.
kids and all
That's
those
right.
things.
That's right.
Um, And it makes such a big difference. So I love what is possible
Yeah.
when we sit with us. Thank you
Yeah.
for your time, your heart, and commitment to your work.
Thank you. Thank you for having me and gifting me a platform to share it. Yeah, I'm grateful.